Well, here's a pleasant surprise. Vaush is going to be talking about Matt Walsh, and my position has always been that conservatism and feminism are basically the same thing. Traditionalism is just consistent, it applies the same standards, the same very harmful standards to men and women, whereas feminism tries to free women but to continue imposing those standards on men. So, Matt Walsh would obviously be very much in line with radical feminists on many issues. Maybe Vaush will stand up to him on that, who knows?
Did you know that conservatives, in addition to being gay, are also really homophobic? I know, it's crazy, but it's also real.
This could be true. Considering the number of conservatives who turn out to be deranged and deviant and especially homosexual, I've often thought that their homophobia is just stemming from a desire to feel naughty when they're getting fucked up the arse.
You would know that the abuse of children is unfortunately quite common. Now, if you were a conservative hack...
I think it's worth noting that the vast majority of abuse of children is against boys, and that the vast majority is carried out by the mother. And these are facts which are quite inconvenient for many people, and which are actively obscured by both feminists and conservatives.
Your response to this might be to find a way to, in some way, tie this to the sexuality of the adoptive parents, which Matt Walsh did in maybe the stupidest way he could have. I would never let a man who is not a blood relative babysit my kids. Most parents wouldn't. And yet, we let male couples adopt children and then act surprised when this happens. It's not surprising. Horrific, infuriating, gut-wrenchingly disgusting and evil, but not surprising.
Yeah, that's pretty mask off, alright. But unfortunately it's not really a very rare position to take. I hear this a lot from male teachers. They have this sort of daily drumbeat of, you can't be alone with the kids, you can't take the kids to the toilet, you can't change the babies, you can't tell off one of the female students for a dress code violation, you can't raise your voice at the students, and so on. But of course that's in a far more feminist environment, so you won't find the same sort of homophobic angle. And that's also why you won't find someone like Vaush or someone like Matt Walsh bringing attention to that issue.
So there are layers to this, which I find quite funny. So first of all, the premise that he seems to be selling here is that men are innately disposed to sexually abusing children, which first of all is a remarkable thing to say. Matt Walsh, man, allegedly. And second of all, I'm not entirely sure how this is a mark against homosexual couples, because, and again, let me know if I'm blowing anyone's mind here, when a straight couple adopts a child, there is a man in the straight couple.
Yeah, that's a good logic, Bern, but we could also use some facts for this argument. For example, rates of child abuse by women, which is most child abuse. Maybe not most of the sexual abuse, but certainly most of the abuse. And for that matter, most of the sexual abuse probably takes place in secure facilities. And according to the US Bureau of Justice Statistics at least, the vast majority of sexual violence in those facilities is committed by female members of staff. And we've all seen the reaction to female teachers molesting students under their control.
Yeah, lesbian parents only, apparently. Though, something tells me that if one were to directly reply to Matt and go like, so lesbian parents are the solution, he would suddenly have an issue with that as well.
I'm really not as confident of that, to be honest. I mean, it's possible, but there's a reason that that's not the argument he's making here. There's a reason that the argument he's making is just against homosexual men. And I really think this is just the mask-off version of a conservative ideology that really doesn't take fatherhood all that seriously, but takes the rights of women to children extremely seriously.
Obviously, Matt Walsh does not have an issue with sexual abuse. He has literally defended pedophiles before, and he's argued that Catholic Church doesn't have a pedophile problem, it has a gay priest problem. He has always...
Again, he didn't say anything about gay nuns, did he? This idea that men can't be trusted with children actually seems to be a pretty consistent ideological position from Matt Walsh.
Is that the attitude that he's displaying here with this, men are innately rapists thing, this was the stereotype feminazi view that conservatives used to apply to the left. Do you remember?
I really don't remember conservatives applying that idea to the left, no. I remember feminists actively taking that position. Like, teach men not to rape was not something that conservatives made up, it was something that feminists were openly promoting. And paranoia about rape is a very, very consistent feature of feminism and has been for a long time. And that's without going into the likes of Andrea Dworkin and all the other radical all-sexes rape people.
Like, I remember only a couple years ago that there was this straw man that feminists were like, believed all men were rapists or whatever. Or maybe like a couple of feminists would say that.
Oh, maybe a couple. Maybe more than a couple, you know? But the problem isn't the couple, or the more than a couple. It's the institutions, you know, the academic institutions that had those teach men not to rape classes. They made it their official policy, and that's not just a couple of weirdos. And those are just the people going mask off and explicitly stating this position. All the people who say believe all women are effectively saying the same thing. The Me Too people, the Take Back the Night people, Reclaim the Streets people, you know, all of these people are taking a position that isn't necessarily all men are rapists, but is very much a guilty until proven innocent position.
And then the right would be like, see, these misandrist fucks hate all men, they're insane. But now, apparently, like, Matt Walsh can just come out here as a conservative pundit and go like, yeah, I just think that all guys are, like, kind of pedophiles, you know? And that's fine? It's workable?
I'm not really sure who Vaush is criticising here. Is it conservatives? Because, yeah, conservatives have bad positions on men's rights issues too. Is it feminists? Because I haven't seen any other feminists speak up about this. Just him.
For two, the kill all men discourse has been satirically adopted widely on the left. Sincere kill all men types are not super common and not representative of the broader movement.
I really don't know what he thinks this is satirising. So I went and looked at the hashtag and at hashtag men are trash and all that sort of thing. And it seems to be, if not a sincere call for genocide, then at least something intended to be sincerely insulting. And comes with various public figures like Clementine Ford, a very prominent feminist, saying things like, COVID isn't killing men fast enough. Like, these are serious statements. And the idea that it's in some way satirical really just doesn't make any sense at all. But I suppose it helps to minimise the offence. And Vaush really doesn't want you to take this seriously.
What the biggest stereotype of that group? Yeah, Medicare would have shit himself, and the Quartering would have done a video. Geeks and Gamers would have made 17 videos on the misandrist left and how they hate all men and they think you're a rapist, and how they're making up crazy terms like rape culture to describe this, and they're the ones projecting blah blah. But hey, here's Matt Walsh coming out here with the hot take that he can't be trusted around children, apparently. Very interesting stuff.
Some people still can't let go of Gamergate, but R.I.P. to Mr. Metka, he'll be missed.
Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'm only using this kind of like as a template or an example, is that the initial claims made by a lot of conservatives that feminazis hate all men or like misandry or whatever, the reason they didn't like that is because they only didn't like the antagonistic framing towards the worst elements of supposedly masculine behavior that they actually think is good.
Well, I'd bounce that idea right back at Vaush, because he does occasionally come out against the more extreme anti-male stuff like this, but he never focuses on institutional discrimination, which men also face. Because his entire focus is on recruitment, and that's doomed. You can't say that men should join your movement when you don't really care about men's issues. You can't say, no, don't join a movement that cares about your issues, just join our movement instead. And if it was a leftist saying this stuff, if it was Sam Cedar or someone that Vaush supports, then he'd be taking exactly the same position towards them that right-wing creators are taking towards Matt Walsh. Which is sad, because there's really no reason not to be intellectually consistent with this one.
Oftentimes, you know, the worst accusations the left makes of men, oftentimes accusations I disagree with, I certainly don't think all men are rapists, are positions that the right will agree with as long as it's being framed as a good thing, right? So the right can't stand the term rape culture, but a lot of those same people who don't like that term will then turn around and go, yeah, well, of course men have a naturally predatory sexual behavior. Like, oh, of course, obviously, you know?
So the term rape culture was actually developed initially in men's prisons in America to explain what was happening to the inmates who by coincidence, were actually mostly being victimised by female members of staff. And of course it's been very much hijacked by feminists since then, but here Vaush seems to actually be accepting that the term rape culture implies that men are inherently sexually predatory, and defends its use nonetheless, because that of course is the feminist dogma.
I mean, the actual, like, real position being held here, they don't want, they will argue against the idea that rape is a problem, not that it happens. It's not against the issue itself; it's the framing of the issue. Because otherwise, this could be seen as a, as a sort of, like a boys will be boys attitude, basically.
Seriously, no one in human history has ever said boys will be boys when they're talking about rape, okay? Like children running around and being noisy, yes. Serious violent crime? Definitely not. It has never happened, it's nothing but a feminist delusion, and Vaush, as usual, is just retailing that.
I mean, another good example of this would be, here's a good one. Okay, last one I'll say. You know how a lot of white supremacists will talk about black people being innately violent? Common talking point, right? 1350, blah-de-blah-de-blah, right?
It's true, the parallels between feminism and white supremacy are, as always, very enlightening. And so on. That's the end of the video, and Vaush has actually done relatively well here. By his own very low standards, at least he's done better than Matt Walsh. I normally prefer to focus on left-wingers because I'm a left-winger, and I really feel like I should be able to expect better of these people. But when it comes to people like Matt Walsh, well, there's plenty to talk about there as well.